Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to Sunday with Barbara. And most of all, welcome to the Advancement Center and to your world of magic and miracles. Whether or not we know it or we don't, we are all living magic and miracles. And I'm here to capture it for you, tell you little stories of my life. And it's so good to be with you. So, I was thinking this morning, and I came up with this visual of bookshelves and libraries are filled with stories of lives lived, dreamt about, and these all add up to millions of pages defining history, ours, and the rest of the world. Now, so many of my vintage have already written their memoirs, but I guess I was too busy to take the time and thought to accomplish this because the newness of every day commanded my attention. So, my dear audience, I continue my memoir courtesy of YouTube. Yeah. Now, just to give you a little catch up, I began my career in the mental health industry. And that's a good choice of word, industry, because that's what it is. And that began in 1975. And fired from my first position because of my success with a brilliant woman who had a brilliant mind and showed it off to the director of Creedmoor, and expecting a commendation from him, I got a pink slip and was dismissed, probably because I was so successful with Joan. That was my first awakening of this nutty world that I had entered. Yeah. Okay. Then after that, I had a 3.5-year stint at Kingsborough Psychiatric Center in Brooklyn. You know, the one with the 1.5-hour commute in rush hour during the morning. That was cuckoo. And I was responsible for the geriatric division, and the details were shared on my last broadcast. That would be, I guess, August 1st, or maybe, I'm not sure, last week. Okay. Now, here is a story that happened at Kingsborough and will forever live in my heart. And I tell it to you now. Here we go. Now, we're talking about what, 70 years? No, at least 50 years ago. Okay, the second floor of the geriatric division was the intake location of new residents. And I just happened to be there. I've also witnessed the intake procedure, and I won't share it with you. It's no, no. I'm going to tell you the story of Aaron. I just made up his name. I was sitting there and I noticed a new doctor. And I knew all the doctors, but he was a tall, handsome man wearing a soft white shirt with sleeves rolled up to the elbows, brown slacks. But there was a giveaway. It didn't compute. He was wearing slippers. A new intake? Is this possible? He just looks amazing. He looks like a doctor. But here's his story. Needless to say, we got to know each other very well. And his story is his life took him to the Riviera, and he became an integral part of a community of intellectuals, musicians, writers, philosophers, names that you would recognize. And he was beloved. They loved him. And then he ran into some hard times because his money ran out. So the only thing that they could offer him was, you could go back to America. They take care of their seniors there. And all you have to do is present yourself, and they will take care of you. So he took their advice, and he found himself in an adult home in the Sheepshead Bay area of Brooklyn. And I could just see him, tall, handsome, walking into this place where the walls are lined with elderly people, old, not talking, not communicating, not living. They were just there. And Aaron walked into this place. He said, "My God, this place needs waking up." And he tried his damnedest. And he entertained everyone with stories, and he asked them about their life, and he didn't get too far. And then he tasted the food that they were eating, and he said, "Well, no wonder they're eating garbage." So he made himself very useful. He went into the kitchen, and he made some suggestions, and he bolstered up the menu, and he even did cooking. And he was trying to get the residents involved in the cooking procedure with him. And he was a breath of fresh air, but nobody was breathing. Well, I don't really know how long this went on for, but he couldn't stand it. He said, "This is not living. I miss my friends." So every night he would ask for a couple of sleeping pills to help him go to sleep. And they gave it to him. And he collected them. And when he had a fair amount of sleeping pills, with resolve, he sat in the dark in his closet and took all of the sleeping pills with a bottle of water. I guess the people in charge finally woke up and realized he was missing. They found him and they dragged him to Kingsborough Psychiatric Center because you have to be nuts to take your life. And that's how he got to Kingsborough. I listened to his story, and there was an immediate connection of here is an intelligent, alive, wonderful man with awful circumstances. So I welcomed him as much as I could, and I introduced him, and I invited him to the sensory awareness program that I was running. And I was almost a little embarrassed because it was so beneath his intelligence. And here I am trying to make people aware of their ability to exercise their arms and their legs. I remember that feeling inadequate and in exasperation. He said, "What are you trying to do?" And he dropped to the floor and did 20 push-ups. Here was a man, virile, handsome, full of life, finding himself in this ridiculous place. Well, I felt so inadequate because I knew exactly what he needed. He needed stimulation. He needed friends. He needed to be alive and normal. And here he was in this crazy place. So I made a point to connect with him every day, and he shared stories, and I shared my story, and we became good friends. And I guess the powers that be noticed, and they didn't like it. I was fraternizing, and that was a no-no. So they kept me away and said I couldn't go to the second floor anymore. I can only go directly to the fourth floor, do the sensory awareness, the drop-in center, and all the special counseling that I did up there, but not the second floor. And then I heard through the grapevine that Aaron was on a hunger strike. So I went and I visited him. And I said, "What's going on?" He said, "Have you ever eaten the food here? It's like wet brown bags served on a plate. And it's ridiculous." So I said, "Okay, what would you like?" You could see I was getting to be a little bit more off the beaten track. And he said, for one, I need onions for my blood chicken for the nourishment, and there was something else. I said, okay, you've got it. So that night when I went home, before I got home, I went to our local market and I picked up the onions, the chicken, and whatever that third one was. And I had it and I brought it with me the next day. And I was on my way up to give it directly to Aaron. And I met Dr. Isn't that funny? His last name starts with a V, and all I can remember is Vermin. He said, you don't need to go up there. I'll take the food and I'll give it to him. I had no choice. I had to give it to him. P.S. Aaron never got that food. So now he's really on a hunger strike. And I don't want to lose this man. He's too special. So that night, somehow or other, I got past everybody. Everybody went home. That's it. And I went up the stairs and I found him. And I said, did you get the food? And he said, no, I didn't get it. And I said, I'm not surprised. I said, 1 minute. And I ran down the stairs to my office and I got that instant chicken noodle soup. All you need is boiling water. So I came back up. I invited him into the break room. I made 2 bowls of chicken soup and we sat at a square table, catty-cornered from each other, and devoured the soup together. And he said, why are you here? He said, you should be home with your family. I said, no, I'm here with my family. You are my family. And that was a most precious time. It was so special. So what happened? And then right after that episode where he was coming alive, I got a command from the director of Creedmoor, a Dr. Havalawala. It took a little while, but now I can say it. And I was supposed to, and I had to leave Kingsborough immediately. But I had been working to get Aaron discharged. And I felt the best thing for him to do was to be a chef in a wonderful place. And I found it in Israel. So before I left, I made sure that Judy, an art therapist, would pick up the story and make sure that Aaron got discharged and sent to Israel to become a chef there. And I pray that's what happened. So that was the end of Kingsborough. Now here I am at Creedmoor. And Dr. Havalawala wants me to write a 3-year operational plan for a 7,000 bed institution. I said, I don't know how to do that. I don't have the information for a report. He said, do you think I'd let you do that by yourself? All the deputy directors will help you. I remember hearing him say that to me. Well, P.S., I was given an office, no secretary, no information, nothing. And I had to create a 3-year operational plan. I said, well, where's the roster of all the staff? Where's the roster of all the patients? 7,000. And all I remember, I mean, this is kind of fuzzy because this is a long time ago. You know, they have, you've probably seen them in school administrative offices. They have a drawer, a skinny drawer with people's identity, and then they flip, and they have about 30 on a drawer, and the drawers fit in. I hope you're following this. At any rate, I have a vivid memory of pulling out those drawers and turning them upside down on a printer and printing out pages with names so I could have some sort of idea of who was where and what was happening. Well, that whole time is truly a blur. I hardly saw my family. I spent every day and every night in my office trying to make heads or tails and create some sort of document. And my dearest friend, John, who was a lawyer, came every night with his briefcase to sit and help me. And in fact, I was accused of leaving the lights on. After I went home, I said, I didn't go home. The lights were on because I was there. Well, some by hook or crook, with the grace of God and the help of John, I handed in a 3-year operational plan to Dr. Havalawala. And he only made 2 changes. He took my name off and put his name on. That was distributed throughout New York State. And he collected all the kudos. And I was about to just, I don't know. I'm not quite sure how I got through that. But that's the story of Erin. And did I tell you? I remember telling you we had the chicken soup together. But then he said, what are you here for? You should be home with your family. And all I remember saying is, you are my family. And as I think back to those experiences, I realized that every encounter was preparing me for this beautiful Advancement Center platform. Because no matter what your experience is, you bring your love, your dedication, and your love of life and humanity. So, let's see, I had made a few notes here, so. All right, I took you through that horror show. And so in other words, I've seen it all. I've seen it all. My story is told. Thank you for listening. Now, with great anticipation, the new world is dawning. And new possibilities arise at every turn. And speaking of new possibilities, here's my art for this week. Yeah, there it is. And I think this was my first still life. And I was delighted. I hope you like it. So everyone has a story. Some are more dramatic than others, but every story counts. And we should listen to each other because there are pearls of wisdom. And the wisdom I can offer you is endless. And now I wish you a perfect life with perfect health and an amazing future filled to the brim with newness and sweetness and a lot of love. I am Barbara.